Number 1. Bonfire. Outside of the town that I grew up in, there was always a bonfire that was held on Halloween night. It was mainly a place for high schoolers to hang out at, though. It was always held at a spot that was past the woods by the town. I began going when I was 13, and I had other friends who began going then too. Nothing really scary ever happened at the bonfire, except for one time. This was when I was 17, and had been going for several years. I was headed up there with my two best friends, hopefully because there was a girl that I liked that might be there too. So that was really my focus at the time, although I knew I would probably have a beer or two also. My two friends were Joey and Todd. I had grown up from kindergarten with those two, and we did a lot of stuff together. It was already dark by the time that we had gotten to the bonfire. When I arrived, I immediately took notice of the girl that I was interested in, and excused myself from my friends to go and hang out with her. Some time had passed by the time Todd came up to me. There were a fair number of people at the bonfire, and he was having a problem finding Joey. He wanted to know if I had seen him, and I had been too focused on the girl to have paid much attention. So he went off to look for him again. After a short while, Todd came back, and he swore up and down that Joey wasn't anywhere around the fire. He had searched and talked to everyone, and no one had seen him for hours. I figured that Joey probably just met a girl and went off with her somewhere. Either that or something else simple as that. However, Todd was pretty concerned, so I was able to pull myself away from the girl for a little while to go and look for Joey. Todd was right. Joey was nowhere around the fire itself. We checked out in the woods a little bit, hoping that he was just making out with some girl behind a tree, but we were unable to find him. We finally considered the possibility that he had left for some reason. Todd later told me that this kid, Jonah, was there at the bonfire. He had seen him earlier in the night. It was surprising because he really wasn't popular at all. People found him to be really weird, and many of us thought he would end up being a serial killer one day. He also was now missing from the bonfire. Todd got all worked up, thinking that Jonah might have done something to Joey, but I didn't think that was likely. When Joey never came back, we eventually went home without him. I still didn't think that anything was wrong, until I got a call from Joey's dad the following day. He told me that Joey had never come home that night. I explained to him what happened at the bonfire, and I guess he eventually called the police to tell them that his son was missing. The next few days went by pretty strangely. Joey was still missing, and Jonah missed one day at school, but then he came back. And there was a lot of tension between Todd and he, because Todd was sure he had done something to Joey. However, there was no evidence of this. But after a few days, even I began thinking that Jonah had something to do with it. About a week after Joey's disappearance, Todd and Jonah got into a pretty nasty fight. Todd started it, but Jonah had a geometry compass in his backpack, and he ended up stabbing Todd with it several times before they got separated. Both of them got suspended from school. I wish I could give you a better update on how the story ended, but I don't really have one. Joey was listed as a missing person, and I never heard from him again. No body was ever found, and he never came back. I have no idea if he was killed, and no idea if Jonah had anything to do with him disappearing, but I do know how scary it was. When Jonah attacked Todd with that compass, and afterward, whenever he saw Todd, he gave him just the evilest looking smile I'd ever seen. I think the official story is that he was a runaway, but I don't know for sure. Number 2. The old house. We were looking for a place to party that Halloween night. We hadn't had a problem before, because one of us would have a girlfriend that was babysitting. Yeah, cliche, I know. But this fall, none of us were dating any girls that were working babysitting jobs. So my 3 best friends and I We're not sure what we were going to do. However, my friend Aaron knew about an old farmhouse he was pretty sure had been abandoned for a long time. Apparently he had scoped it out a few days before and was sure that there was no one there. So on Halloween night, we got some beer and decided to break into the place. I didn't know what to expect when I was coming up upon the place, but we had to walk since it was over a stretch of farmland that had since grown over. It was a pain carrying the beer with us all that way, but it wasn't like we had to bring the bottles back. The house was pretty creepy, but that just made it perfect for Halloween. We easily broke into the place and got prepared to have a really good night. As we were drinking and smoking, another of my friends, Chris, didn't seem like he was having the best time. He looked preoccupied, but he wouldn't tell us why. It really wasn't until much later in the night that he finally opened up and told me what was bothering him. He claimed that he had heard some noises and thought that there might be someone else in the house with us. We had been there for a couple hours already, so I just thought this was ridiculous. The house was obviously abandoned, and if some hobo lived there or something, there would have been some sign of them. Hell, in fact, they wouldn't just leave us partying there in their squatter's palace. They would have come to chase us out or something. But pointing all this out to Chris really didn't do any good. He still seemed nervous, and he just wouldn't loosen up and enjoy himself. Still, nothing happened for the next several hours, and I know that I didn't hear anyone else in the house. Of course, with the drinking and smoking, things eventually got a little blurry as the night went on. We had stayed up pretty late and figured we would just leave in the morning. All of us would have gotten into major trouble if we went home drunk and stoned. Luckily, the house was dry and not uncomfortable. I did come to later at night, but I wasn't sure how late it was. It was quiet and dark in the house, so I figured that my friends must have gone to sleep or passed out too. I did find that I had to go to the bathroom though, and I knew I'd have to go outside. There were indoor bathrooms, but we had discovered earlier in the night that they were too gross for even us to use. It was dark outside, but as I was coming back in, it was worse because my eyes hadn't adjusted yet. I didn't want to stumble and fall over anyone, so I took my phone out and flipped it open. This was in the early 2000s, so phones didn't have flashlights on them yet. I had to use the light from the screen to see my way around. Those really didn't use much light though, so everything was still pretty dark. Then I heard a weird little noise. I don't know what I can compare it to, but it was enough to get my attention turned to a specific corner in the room. When I did, by the feeble light of the cell phone screen, I could make out someone who looked like Aaron laying back in the corner, and there was someone right over him. At first I assumed it was another one of my friends, but as I quickly shined the light around the room, I saw the other two at other parts of the room. So whoever was hovering over Aaron was a new person. I shined the phone back over there as I heard some more noise. It was just in time to see someone move away from Aaron and back into the hallway through a close-by door. I had thought that Aaron had been sleeping, but he woke up when I shined the light back, and he had seen someone standing over him. He confirmed it pretty quickly by how scared he was, and I knew that I hadn't just had my eyes playing tricks on me. We got the other guys up and told them what happened, but they didn't believe us at first. However, Aaron was so terrified, and he wasn't one to get very scared. We were all too messed up, and it was too dark for us to leave, so we remained in the house until the sun came up. The whole night, we heard someone moving around down in the basement, and we didn't get a wink of sleep as we slowly sobered up over the night. We got out of there at first light. Number 3. The following. I really wasn't bullied when I was growing up, but I wasn't really popular either. When I was in high school, I never went to parties or hung out with other people very much. When Halloween rolled around, I spent it by myself, and that was alright with me too. In fact, since I was very involved in the drama club at my high school, it gave me a free night to remain behind and work on all the sets. I did all the painting on the sets, so I also worked better when I was by myself. So I stayed pretty late on this Halloween when I was 17. I got a lot done, and although it wasn't like past midnight, it was still quite late when I got out. I walked to and from school. I had to walk through town to get to the neighborhood that my house was in. There really wasn't a whole lot going on that night, because trick-or-treating was held on a non-school night. On Halloween itself, most people went to parties or went around playing stupid pranks on each other. So other than the occasional car driving by, I was not surprised with how dead it was in the town. I was further not surprised when I was passing by the cemetery that was in my neighborhood in the beginning of it. I had walked past it hundreds and hundreds of times, and I never thought anything about it. Some people thought it was scary, but I've never found cemeteries to be that scary. But what I meant by not surprised was that I was not surprised to see that someone was hanging out in the cemetery. He wasn't that far away from the entrance, but he appeared to be there by himself. He was wearing a mechanic's outfit and a rubber mask, so I was guessing he was just out there to try and scare people as they walked by the cemetery. I really only gave him a slightly more than a glancing view as I walked by. Hell, I wasn't even surprised when I made it past the entrance to the place and heard something that brought my attention to turn around. The guy had stepped out of the cemetery and was behind me on the sidewalk. He was walking behind me as if he was following me, but that wasn't too shocking. He was probably trying to get a cheap scare out of me. After all, it was Halloween. But it continued. I didn't have a whole lot of turns to make to get to my house, but this guy turned on each street that I turned on. If I didn't know him, and I had no idea if I did or not, then he was taking the joke way too far. Being followed by a big scary guy in a mask is not as bad if it is being done between friends, but I didn't have many friends. Finally, when I turned down the street to my house, I took a few peeks back. Rather than following me down the street to my house, he simply stood there at the end of the street. He must have figured that he had succeeded in scaring the crap out of me, and he was done. I was just happy that he was leaving me alone now. And when I got home, I went up to my room and did some reading. My parents woke up early in the morning, so they had already gone to bed when I got home. However, I found myself getting really hungry only a half hour after I had gotten home. I went downstairs to the kitchen, walking in the dark. I turned on the light in the kitchen and immediately stopped when I looked at the back kitchen door. The guy who had followed me was out there, and he was jiggling the doorknob like he was trying to get the door to open somehow. He looked up, and our eyes met for a moment. It was a pretty frightening moment, seeing those eyes behind the rubber of that mask, and I felt like my heart skipped a beat. I began yelling for my parents. That was when he turned and ran off. I think since the house was so dark, he probably thought I was home by myself, and that was why he tried to break in. Or it was something like that, which was happening I really didn't know. But I was just glad that he had run away. Honestly, I expected to hear something from the police about this guy going around scaring people that night. However, we were the only ones who called them, so it seems like for some reason I was the only one he was trying to torment. I have no idea who he was, but he scared the crap out of me that Halloween. Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. I'm going to start as usual by thanking all my paid Patreon members, starting with 2 of my 3 VIPs, Chiamerah Cat and Pixie Hopper 8. Also want to thank Heidi H, Chronic J, Stinky News, EricaOdd, Tracy, Sellars, Kelli, Clark, and Broken Angel. I've been getting a few comments and emails about how I read all the names. I think I mentioned this before, how I read all the names at the end. And it was just something I started to do. It wasn't something I promised that I would be doing. So what I'm going to do now instead, and it probably gets old hearing your name at the end of every video anyways, I will go ahead and mention the free patrons, but I only do it in the first video of each month. And anybody else who joins, I'll mention it on the day that you join too. But other than that, this will be the last time I probably read all the names to the ending like that. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Kelli Cat, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of new videos. Leave me a comment to let me know what you thought. And consider sharing the video with someone you think might enjoy it. And if you have an original story you want narrated on Kelli Cat, please send it to the address included in the description. And now I'd like to mention all my free Patreon members: Anthony Bowers, Remi, Venikins, Rose Metro, Woofer McWooferson, Cindy Cleveland, Vanapira Rayne, William H., Alien Unicorn 13, Joan Hoffman, Kathryn Lynch, The Bama Guy 334, Michael Vasquez, Bonnie Lynn, Collet Bond, Krista Pike, Prince UVA, HF Creations, Bonnie Gibbs, Linda Moore, DJ Lira, Evil Black Cat, Lori Hicks, Lisa Herman, Krystal Robin, Hillbilly 13, RhettSchall, John Tull, Baby and Baby, Sherry Hubbard, Vina Waldren, Whiteybird the Rooster, Acrobatic Cat, and I'd also like to mention my third VIP, Pumpkin Moo, and Pepper 2. But most importantly, don't forget to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a killer orange cat might be hiding. Good night.